Welcome to Accounting 200 Managerial Accounting Lesson 8. This, our final lesson, covers chapters 10 and 11 of the text. Chapter 10 discusses relevant costs and decision making, while chapter 11 looks at capital budgeting decisions. We begin with chapter 10. Every decision involves two or more alternative choices. Relevant costs and revenues are only those that differ between the alternatives. Costs and benefits not affected by the choice can be ignored. Sunk costs should always be irrelevant. An example would be a decision to drop production of a product or continue to make and sell it. Here we focus only on the costs and benefits affected by dropping the line compared with keeping it in place. Although most of the other costs and benefits are irrelevant, mainly the fixed costs, we should take note of joint costs shared with other products that might be affected by the decision. These are called common fixed costs and should enter into the decision making. By removing all the irrelevant costs and benefits, we basically simplify the decision and the calculation. When preparing the analysis, we list the alternatives, two or more, and all of the relevant costs and benefits of each. Sunk costs, like depreciation of old equipment, can be ignored. Similarly, the decision to accept or reject a special order can be analyzed using the same methods. Likewise, when a bottleneck exists that affects two products, we should favor the one with the larger contribution margin per unit until the bottleneck can be eliminated. This involves effectively managing the constrained resource until more of the resource can be obtained. The cost of relaxing the constraint should be compared with the benefits of increasing production by measuring the contribution margin to the value of obtaining more or the cost of obtaining more of the constrained resource. Joint products often have common costs up until a split-off point. In this case, we look only at the incremental costs and benefits of joint production to evaluate the effects on profits. For example, a line of tennis shoes which may be available in multiple colors. The basic cost of the shoe are prior to the split off, and at that point they go into different decorating processes or coloring, and we would evaluate there. Chapter 11 introduces the analysis of capital budgeting decisions. Typical budgeting decisions would be one of the following. Number one, should we purchase new equipment to reduce costs or not? Should we expand, number two, the existing plant size or even open a second facility? Number three, which equipment should we buy if more than one brand is available? Number four, could we lease instead of buying additional equipment? Number five, when should we replace old equipment? When making these decisions, we start with first a screening decision and then a preference decision. A screening decision is based on whether the choice passes a present hurdle. For example, does the project meet the minimum expected rate of return? All right, this would be done for all projects. Do they meet the screening choice? If a project does pass that, the second choice is the preference decision, in which we choose among several acceptable projects or several acceptable alternatives. Since capital investments usually earn over an extended period of time, we should take into account the time value of the money that they will earn. This means that future cash flows from the decision should be discounted to present values before making the decision. When calculating these present values, we should use the company's cost of capital as the minimum required rate of return. This cost sometimes is referred to as the weighted average cost of capital, or WACC. It is a weighted average of the debt and equity costs of raising money for the firm. Usually, a favorable decision occurs when the net present value of the project is a positive number. A negative number indicates that the project does not meet minimum rate of return requirements. When comparing alternative projects, we can simplify the analysis by using the incremental analysis that was introduced in the previous chapter, chapter 10. A second and somewhat less effective method of evaluating alternatives is the internal rate of return method, which is abbreviated IRR. This value is found when the discount rate is such that the present value is 0. Each project will then generate a different rate of return, and usually the project with the higher return is the preferred project. Still less useful, but much easier to compute, is the payback method. This focuses on the time it takes for the project to break even or pay back. The faster the payback, the more the project would be preferred under this method. It does lead to some distortions and may not give the same ranking as the more useful IRR or net present value methods might well do. The simple rate of return is the final method we examine, and it does not involve computing present values. We simply take the future values or accounting values and divide by the number of years to get a simple rate of return. This is very easy to calculate, but it does not generally give really good results. Whenever a project is adopted, the firm should conduct a post-audit to measure the actual versus projected results. This will help management to refine the decision-making process when making capital budgeting decisions. Well, we are at our last lesson. Keep in mind that all assignments and the final exam must be finished by midnight of the Sunday following our last class meeting, which is this coming Monday. I will submit your grades within a day or two of that deadline, so it's important that you have everything complete by that time. It's been a real pleasure working with each of you, and I look forward to part 2 of managerial accounting over the next 8-week session that is upcoming. See you then.